The year is 2012. Jose Mourinho is on track to become the greatest manager in football history. It's not hyperbole. Wherever Mourinho goes, he wins. Before Mourinho arrives, La Liga is bathed in blue and garnet, and it's never a question of if Barcelona will win, it is just by how many. The next decade of La Liga has already been pre-written, but Mourinho rips up the script and not only breaks the Barca dominance, he does it in style. Opposition managers see this 11 donning all white in their iconic 4-2-3-1, and they know the game is over before it begins. They are the perfect blend of possession and penetration. They have excellent defenders in possession, and ahead of them, a perfectly balanced midfield. Xabi Alonso handles all of the deep progression with his immaculate passing range, while Sami Khedira does all the running and brings that extra bite. This forms the perfect platform for the premier attacking midfielder in the world. He has a wealth of options to find ahead of him. Di Maria down the right, or either of the amazing centre forwards. That's before mentioning the crown jewel down the left, who can take on men all his own before unleashing a shot, attack the byline and provide for others, or work in conjunction with the marauding Marcelo to see Ronaldo move into the centre and get on the end of a cross. Make no mistake, Madrid are still defensively resilient when needed, but in attack they're a marvel, and have just smashed the La Liga points record and scored 121 goals in the league alone. The dressing room is completely bought into the Mourinho ideology, speaking glowingly about him in public. And Mourinho returns the favour, fiercely defending anyone who dares criticise his players, as he's always done throughout his career. The only two questions are, how long will Mourinho stay, and how many more trophies will he choose to win? But seemingly overnight, the tide begins to turn in Madrid, and Mourinho begins to act out of character. He starts to turn on his own. Benzema is in poor form, and Mourinho feels the need to justify why he keeps playing him.
Tú si no tienes perro para ir contigo a cazar, si tienes un gato, vai con el gato.
The veiled insult does not sit well with Benzema. Mourinho is never shy about mentioning his players in the media, but it is almost always to praise or defend them, and any critiques are constructive. But in his final season in Madrid, the theme is tension. At every prior club, whenever Mourinho created tension, it was with the media, as he creates a siege mentality for his team. If it is club tension, it is always with the board, as he punches up at his superiors to defend his men, rather than down at his own players. It is why the players always love him. But now, that tension is internal. The biggest stars in his dressing room are turning on him, and Mourinho is hitting back in very public ways. He is ruthless when asked why he's dropped two of his stalwarts.
Pepe, eu penso que é muito fácil de analisar. Su problema tiene un nombre y el nombre es Rafael Varane. No es fácil para un hombre de 31 años ser atropelado por un niño de 19, pero es la ley de la vida. Para mí, Diego López me gusta más como portero que Iker Casillas. Es simples.
The mood in the dressing room is bleak. For the first time in his career, as Mourinho departs, he isn't leaving behind a heartbroken dressing room. He is just leaving behind a broken one.
Não vou mencionar o nome dessa pessoa, porque acho que não vale a pena.
The year is 2008. Mourinho has cemented his place amongst football's elite managers. So much so that despite Inter winning 3 Scudetti on the bounce, bringing in Mourinho is seen as an upgrade. Inter are no longer satisfied with domestic dominance. They want Europe. And who better than Mourinho to do that? After all, Mourinho always wins. He gets to work immediately, showcasing his tactical flexibility and almost instantly having Inter play the way he wants them to. In league games where dominance is expected, he opts for the 4-3-3 with Cambiasso shielding the backline, while Montari or Vieira provides the box-to-box dynamism. When playing against more compact sides, Mourinho's influence ensures that players like Quaresma and Balotelli on the wings dutifully track back as much as they can. If Mourinho spots an opportunity to attack through the heart of the opposition, he is happy to switch to a 4-3-1-2. The formation serves the dual purpose of allowing Inter to defend the centre more effectively, and having a free-floating number 10 and 2 forwards. With an attacking titan like Maicon providing the width, this task becomes a lot easier. Mourinho's flexibility means that Inter thrive and win Serie A at a canter, but that proves to be a warm-up season for Mourinho. The summer sees a few transfers, but amongst the most impactful is the mercurial Wesley Sneijder, brought in to increase creativity. Their MVP from the prior season departs in a cash plus player exchange, with Inter receiving another world-class player and a wad of cash in return. Mourinho takes these raw materials and molds them into something special. He can still use the diamond when the situation demands, but he has molded his side to be nigh on unbeatable in the 4-2-3-1. The Mota-Cambiasso pairing is impossible to penetrate, allowing Wesley Sneijder ultimate freedom in the number 10 role. But it isn't just freedom Mourinho gives him, it's a sense of absolute trust, which leads to Sneijder playing his best ever football. Under Mourinho, Sneijder is equally a creative threat, weaving passes into his forwards, but he's also a goal threat from the midfield. So much so that Sneijder has genuine shouts to win the Ballon d'Or. Mourinho, as he does at every club, has his players in a trance-like state, where they would die for their leader.
First of all, it was a pleasure to work with Jose Mourinho, and I want to tell him this on stage. It was a pleasure to work with him, and he is, for me, the best coach in the world. Thank you.
Sneijder is not the only man under the spell. Samuel Eto'o, perhaps the best striker in the world at Barcelona, is sometimes needed by Mourinho to do a job out wide, to sacrifice himself for the team. And with a whisper in his ear, Mourinho has Eto'o working for the team. He creates a dangerous concoction, elite tactical flexibility, with a team equally comfortable in defense and attack. And that is paired with a team that is willing to die for him, because in front of the media, he would die for them. His last match in charge of Inter brings his biggest success, but it is a night filled with overwhelming sadness, because Jose Mourinho knows he is leaving his family behind. The year is 2013. In the darkest corners of football, some are no longer convinced that Mourinho is an elite-level manager. But to most, he is still elite, with the last season at Madrid being nothing more than a blip in his illustrious career. After all, Mourinho losing a dressing room is unheard of. Chelsea welcomes back their hero, with open arms, keen to rekindle their success of yesteryear. Waiting for Mourinho is a core that he can trust, with the likes of Cech, Lampard, and Terry still at the club. And Mourinho brings in Eto'o to make sure he has enough familiar faces around. Mourinho sticks with the 4-2-3-1 that he loves, and it looks like he is employing a similar philosophy to what he had at Madrid. A solid defensive double pivot and the marauding Ivanovic down the right are counterbalanced by the more conservative Azpilicueta down the left. All he needs is an Ozil to allow the attack to flourish, and he would have many of the principles of his Madrid side, perhaps his finest team so far. It seems Mourinho has a ready-made number 10 in Juan Mata. The diminutive Spaniard has been at the heart of Stamford Bridge since his arrival from Valencia. His first season saw him hit double digits in goals and 20 assists, as Chelsea clinched the Champions League. But that is just a warm-up. In 12-13, Mata truly arrives, smashing the 20-goal and 30-assist barriers. Back-to-back Chelsea Player of the Year, pivotal in consecutive European triumphs. Mata is the crown jewel that Mourinho should be itching to work with. Instead, Mourinho casts him aside, almost instantly, and it is a young Oscar who moves into the number 10 role, and Mata is shunted out to the wing. Rather than take Mata under his wing and build camaraderie within the squad as he has done so often, Mourinho is vocal to the press immediately.
He has to adapt, he has to transform in a few things his game.
It is a sad end to Mata's Chelsea career, as after a measly 13 appearances under Mourinho, the Portuguese gets rid of him. To add insult to injury, he is so unimpressed by Mata, he's willing to let him go to a rival without a second thought. It signals a change in Mourinho's mindset. He's no longer using defense to build a foundation for his best attacking players to flourish. Instead, every player on the team has to be willing to work, which is why Oscar beats up Mata in the center, and Willian does the same on the right. Only Hazard's immense talent is excused from this, and even that is done begrudgingly.
He's not the kind of player ready to sacrifice himself 100% for the team and for the mates. I left out Hazard because we are conceding lots of goals. We need to defend better.
Defense is no longer a platform to allow attacking flair to flourish, carefree. It is now the priority. A solid centre-back pairing, and though Ivanovic now attacks heartily, he is a centre-back by trade, and Azpilicueta would also be solid down the left. Matic's telescopic legs are impossible to get by, and Ramirez uses his engine to harry opponents. Willian is willing to work, and so are Oscar and Eto'o, the utmost defensive solidity with incredible counter-attacking bite. Mourinho's side is still one of the best in the country, and early in his first season, they are still well in the title race thanks to performances like his 6-1 demolition of one of his greatest rivals. But Mourinho looks to take the pressure off of his side and begins to foster a siege mentality, positioning Chelsea as the underdogs.
Jose, it's looking increasingly like a three-horse race for the title.
Two horses and a little horse. A little horse that still needs milk and work and learn how to jump.
And their title race slowly falls apart. They finish finished with 9 men in a 1-0 loss to Aston Villa that sees Mourinho raging at the officials. And a 2-1 defeat to Sunderland means that Mourinho loses his first home game in 77 matches. The little horse is not ready, but there are signs. On the 27th of April, Mourinho feels this 11 riddled with absences. No Cech. Azpilicueta and Ivanovic's positions are shifted due to no Cahill or Terry, no Samuel Eto'o, no Hazard, and the list goes on. To make matters worse, it is Anfield they visit, and a Liverpool side with the title firmly in their sights. Liverpool has been a ravenous pressing team throughout the season, but Mourinho knows that Liverpool's effective press and transition style would be less effective if they had the ball all the time. Mourinho sits his side deep in a 4-5-1, demanding defensive work rate from the wingers, while the fleet-footed duo can hit hard on the transition. There is plenty of criticism of his approach after the match, but Mourinho bites back.
When a team defends well, you call it defensive display. When a team defends bad and concedes 2 or 3 goals, you don't consider defensive display.
The defensive resoluteness led to one of the most memorable moments in Premier League history, and Chelsea derails the Liverpool title race. As Willian finishes off the match and Mourinho celebrates, there is something in his celebrations, an element of schadenfreude. Chelsea does not win the title themselves, but yet he celebrates Liverpool's downfall as if they have. Still the master of bringing his side together, he heaps credit onto his little horse.
We won both matches against the champion. So if the champion is Liverpool, we won both matches against Liverpool. If the champion is Man City, we won both matches against Man City.
Mourinho knows something though.
2 big horses and a nice horse. A horse that next season we can race. It's time to kill the horses.
The side still has the ability to defend when needed. It's a tool that they mastered the previous season and can pull out of their bag at will, like when they visit Arsenal and shut down the game so much that Arsenal fans chant. Mourinho, charismatic as ever, hits back.
I think boring is 10 years without a title. That's very boring. You support a club and you are waiting and for so many years without a Premier League title, I think that's very boring.
On the ball, Fabregas and Diego Costa have a telepathic connection. So after defending solidly, the Spaniard can launch long balls into Costa running in behind. This means opposition lines often drop deeper and deeper, creating space for Oscar to receive a first pass and begin the transition with his wingers. But Fabregas is a maestro with his passing, so Chelsea have the ability to play out with the ball a lot more and dominate the majority of the Premier League teams. But Hazard benefits most, with Matic and Azpilicueta providing immaculate cover on the left-hand side and Oscar doing a lot of running for him. Much like Ronaldo, Mourinho has created a platform for his left winger to flourish. It's a return to former times, defense as a means to attack better and more clinically. Eden Hazard wins several honours under Mourinho, and just as he promises the season prior, Chelsea return to the top of the Premier League. The next season, though, is an unmitigated disaster. On the pitch, they start with a string of poor performances. But what is most telling, much like his final days in Madrid, fractures in the dressing room are developing. And it starts in the very first game of the season. Chelsea is a man down, and with the score at 2-2 into added time, Mourinho is happy to take the point for the next match. But Eden Hazard goes down, and the medical staff, including Eva Carneiro, rush onto the pitch to attend to the Belgian. Mourinho is livid. He feels Hazard's injury is more tactical than anything else. But when the medical staff rushes onto the pitch, it means that Hazard now has to come off, momentarily reducing the Blues to 9 men and putting their point at risk. Mourinho goes on a post-match rant at his impulsive and naive medical staff.
I was very unhappy with my medical staff. Even if you are a kit man, a doctor or a secretary on the bench, you have to understand the game.
This incident would be one of the biggest contributing factors to the unease within the dressing room. The results on the pitch continue to worsen, and dressing room rifts are rumoured between Mourinho and the likes of Costa and Hazard. December 14th, 2015 is a turning point. Following a 2-1 loss to Leicester, Mourinho says,
I feel that my work was betrayed.
He has publicly turned on his players a second time and has lost the dressing room once again, a far cry from when he declared,
I'm the happy one. I describe myself as a very happy person. Please don't call me arrogant because what I'm saying is true. I'm European champion. I think I'm a special one.
The year is 2004. Chelsea have just hired the most promising manager in world football. He's bold, he's brash, he's arrogant. But all of that is done with a childlike twinkle in his eye that draws the public in. His eye for talent sets him apart from other managers, as his extensive scouting unearths gems. In his first transfer window, Chelsea spend big, but intelligently, and almost every incoming player becomes a key figure. Across his first Chelsea spell, Mourinho's side are always solid defensively, with Makelele in particular being hailed for his ability to patrol the midfield region, so much so that the role is named after him. Behind him, the formidable Terry and Carvalho duo doesn't need much cover, but still, the solidity of this midfield triumvirate allows Ferreira and Bridge to overlap like good modern fullbacks. And the theme of his Chelsea side is balance. Chelsea can play through the midfield, with Makelele keeping things simple, while Lampard and Thiago can be more box-to-box, situationally providing defensive cover and defensive threat. But Chelsea can also go long, because after a slow start, Mourinho coaxes the best out of Didier Drogba, turning him into one of the premier target man in Premier League history. He's quick and physical enough to run in behind or into the channels, particularly when Essien joins the party. Lampard is unleashed, and is always well positioned to receive knockdowns from the big Ivorian. It is a rare sight at this time to see a solitary forward, but Mourinho, having the cheat code that is Drogba, does so, and it allows him to have an extra man in the midfield to increase their control and solidity. Out wide, Damien Duff and Robin wreak havoc. Their blistering pace on the transition makes most teams hesitant to attack, and in 1v1s they are massive threats, with the offensive fullbacks, particularly when Ashley Cole joins the fray providing width on the outside. They can slip them in to look for crosses into the ideal target man, or Lampard arriving late into the box. Failing that, they can cut inside themselves, using the space created to unleash blistering shots. Defensively, this Mourinho side is a dream. Lethal attackers up front, and 11 players willing to defend when it comes to it, as he has 11 fighters with him. What makes him incredible, special, is his tactical acumen. Mourinho is so far ahead and so well prepared. It is almost as if he has a crystal ball where he sees the match before it happened. His scouting report prior to meeting Barcelona showcases this, covering not just the expected movements and weaknesses of every player in extreme detail, but also a breakdown of every Barcelona player and how to exploit them. His leadership make them one of the best sides the league has seen, and they end with a record 95 points, conceding only 15 goals in the league. But 06-07 brings a new atmosphere. Mourinho is expected to win the Champions League, but Abramovich is also beginning to tire of the more pragmatic approach and wants the Blues to be the sleekest side in the land. To solve both problems in one fell swoop, Mourinho upgrades the quality of his side, and two superstars, Andrei Shevchenko and Michael Ballack, are brought into the fray. But where Ballack is tasked with bringing in more creativity and Shevchenko a new dynamic and even more goals, they seem to actually bring more challenges. The Chelsea midfield had been a finely balanced trio, but Ballack has similar attacking instincts to Lampard, wanting to operate in zone 14 as well as make late runs into the box. The pair often not only tread on each other's toes, but also leave Makelele much more exposed. To solve this, they could shift to a diamond with Shevchenko in, but the Drogba-Shevchenko pairing is bitterly disappointing, and Mourinho's system is built for a solitary forward. With the results not going the way he wants, Mourinho has to trust his own judgment, and reverts to the players he wants to start, not those that Abramovich prefers. This does not go over well with Abramovich, and is a major factor in Chelsea letting Mourinho go. When he leaves the club, fans mourn the departure of one of the best in the world, and wonder how they could ever replace him or replicate the environment that he created. The year is 2016, and Mourinho is at a crossroads. To many, he is still an elite tactical manager, having won the league less than a year prior with Chelsea. But the tide is beginning to turn, as rumblings of Mourinho being left behind by modern football grow louder and louder. Where before, whenever Mourinho was on the market, top clubs lined up for him around the corner. In this new era of slick passing and high-scoring sides, his more pragmatic approach means that the queue is slightly shorter. But United take the gamble, because Mourinho always presents clubs with a simple trade. Your style of football might not be the most dynamic, but I will guarantee you to win silverware. The pressure is on. It's an exciting start to his tenure, with big names arriving left and right. Mourinho sticks with his trusted 4-2-3-1, initially Pogba playing as one of the pivots. It is a season full of change, as there are still established players who operate in midfield at times, with Rooney or Mata having the ability to play as one of the floating players behind Zlatan, who, much like Drogba for Mourinho before him, can operate as the target man. This is ideal because although United are never a possession-obsessed side, their pivots are not the most technically gifted, so keeping the Frenchman deeper allows him to pick up the ball and be the center of almost every attack they launch. His passing range is always key, finding runners in behind more and more often, Antonio Valencia from right back uses his running ability to get into incredibly dangerous zones down the left, allowing the right wingers of Mata and Mkhitaryan to move into the more central zones they want. But Pogba is also not a natural defensive midfielder and can get caught high up the pitch and out of position, leaving the team exposed. As the most expensive player in the world, expectations are sky high, and the lack of defensive astuteness means that the critics are waiting at Paul Pogba's doorstep. Mourinho, like he usually does, comes to the defense of his charge.
It's not his fault that some of the pundits, they are in real trouble with their lives and they need every coin to survive, and Paul is a multimillionaire. It's not his fault. Envy is everywhere. I'm very happy with Paul.
A fierce public defense is expected, but behind closed doors, he may have agreed and was wary of leaving Pogba exposed. So when Mourinho faces off against a rival and defaults to pragmatism, a second pivot, often Fellaini or Carrick, comes in and frees up Pogba. A great move for team balance, but makes them less watchable. But Mourinho gets results, and at the end of the season, his pragmatic approach has United lifting major silverware as they win the Europa League. They receive a lot of criticism, but Mourinho hits back plainly, but effectively.
There are lots of poets in football, but poets, they don't win many titles.
The style is nowhere near as watchable as his sides of the past, and it looks like he'll be keeping his new reputation.
So I think the season was really good. Was tonight the victory of the pragmatism, the victory of the humble people, the people that respect the opponents, the people that try to stop the opponent's qualities, try to explore the opponent's weaknesses. So for me, it was the victory of a fantastic group, but based on pragmatism and based on humble principles.
And Mourinho, as he has always done over the last few seasons, spends big again on the transfer market to try challenge for an even bigger trophy. Once again, he brings back a former soldier in Matic to operate within a dedicated midfield three and free Pogba from having to be a pivot. While the league results improve, against low block teams, United can struggle with creativity, solely relying on Pogba and an out of position Mata drifting infield. United do well, but it does not help that their neighbours are going at a record-breaking pace, leaving United in their dust. But as the season rolls on, a rare occurrence is now becoming a trend. Mourinho has some of his own players in his crosshairs. Luke Shaw is the victim of Mourinho's deriding remarks, as Mourinho constantly critiques him in public, whether it's highlighting a poor performance.
And look, in the first half, every time they went in his corridor, the cross was coming and the dangerous situation was coming. So I was not happy with the performance.
Or taking credit away for a good one.
He had a good performance, but was his body with my brain, because he was in front of me and I was making every decision for him.
Pogba is the second player in question. Rumours of tension between the pair have been going on for a while, whether it's Mourinho's suspicion of Pogba's injury record, or Pogba always showing frustration with United's playing style. After a 1-1 draw against Wolves in 2018, Pogba says, "We're much better at home and we should play much better against Wolves. When we're at home, we should attack, attack, attack. It's Old Trafford. We're here to attack." Reports say Mourinho goes as far as calling Pogba a virus in the dressing room. The fallout is solidified, as after a training ground confrontation with Pogba, Mourinho strips him of his vice-captaincy. More and more, Mourinho leans on his past achievements rather than what he's doing in the moment.
3-0. But also mean 3 premierships, and I won more premierships alone than the other 19 managers together.
Just like his Madrid stint and his second Chelsea spells, things begin to deteriorate quickly. 18-19 is their worst start to a season in 28 years. And what happens when you promise results, but you're no longer fulfilling one side of the bargain? Mourinho slinks out of Old Trafford, leaving behind yet another dressing room, happy to see the back of him. The year is 2002. Mourinho is young, unknown, but has shown enough competency to be handed the keys to one of Portugal's biggest clubs. It's a huge task, and having no significant playing career means he has to do more to earn the respect of players. But Mourinho has no problem imposing himself on the side. They quickly take to the charismatic manager's ideology and have the ability to shift between a 4-3-3, 4-5-1 and a diamond opportunistically during matches. His centre-back duo of Costa and Carvalho is shielded by a defensive juggernaut in Costinha. The fullback backs balance each other out, with both capable of providing attacking impetus, but Ferreira is willing to offer more defensive solidity to allow Nuno Valente to flourish down the left. The midfield three ahead of them are solid central midfielders. So when Porto decide to sit back, this shape is impossible to penetrate, but it's also the base for Deco to thrive as a floating number 10, doing all the chance creation for his side. Mourinho's Porto sits when they need to, but they can also press like dogs, and with this trio so high, they can launch instant counterattacks that shock the world. A Primeira Liga points record in his first season is just the start for Mourinho. The remarkable feats at Porto are facilitated by the fact that Mourinho has his ideal type of dressing room with him, so full of experience that it allows him to focus on coaching.
And when you have these leaders, you become more a coach. You focus more on the coaching side of it.
He uses this time to show why his fresh new style of management is the future. He does more opposition scouting than any other manager, and every player knows their opposite number more intimately than they know themselves. Most sides of the time had sloppy, weight-based and running-based sessions, completely stripped from all the context of a football game. Mourinho introduces tactical periodization, where players work on the fitness and tactical element of football at the same time, by mimicking in-game situations. The cutting-edge approach is no doubt informed by his degree in physical education and sport, and general exposure to the academic world. Jose Mourinho is undoubtedly on the cutting edge, and his results show that. Surely other managers seek to be like him. He mixes all of this with extreme results, and the ability to get players to want to run through brick walls for him. When Mourinho leaves, there is a mourning in Porto, but also pride in knowing that they have spent a very special time with one of the very best, a true innovator. The year is 2019. Mourinho has fallen behind the times. There is still demand for Mourinho, but it is now clubs below super club status that are circling. When Poch is sacked from Spurs, the arrival of Mourinho is met with trepidation from Spurs fans. They know the attacking football they love will be stripped from them. The only consolation is that Mourinho will end their trophy drought. After all, that's what Mourinho does, right? Get results? Immediately, he instills the 4-2-3-1 and a much more disciplined defensive structure as he tries to resolve the defensive issue present under Poch. It's a familiar pattern, with Spurs now sitting deep in big matches and giving up the ball and looking purely to hit on the counter. He largely employs the same philosophy, which hasn't changed in years, implemented the same way. The double pivots to protect the centre-backs, the asymmetric full-backs, and having such a limited deep midfield pairing means that his higher midfielders, and even Kane, have to drop deep to provide easier outlet options, of course creating a vacuum in the offensive zones. Spurs have bright periods throughout the season, but the style is turgid and the criticism piles on. Mourinho hits back. No longer is it in the cheeky, playful manner of years gone by. There's a bitterness and dependency on invoking his former glories.
I don't think anybody is going to discuss rocket science with the guys from NASA, but everybody around the world, they think they can discuss football with one of the most important managers in the game.
His battles don't stop with the media. Mourinho, in trademark Mourinho fashion, turns on his own players, but this time he picks out his targets earlier than ever. He doesn't shield any of his underperforming players from criticism and is willing to discuss them in depth in public, a strange departure from prior years. Mourinho's Spurs spell is not without its high points. It starts well and includes great results like the 6-1 demolition of United and a run to the League Cup final, where he is deprived of the opportunity to win the cup. When Mourinho departs, many breathe a sigh of relief. Many players feel they have a second opportunity, while fans rejoice about a chance to return to a more offensive style. Mourinho leaves behind another broken down dressing room. The year is 2001, and something special is happening in Portugal. A young upstart manager had his first job taking over the reins of one of Portugal's biggest clubs, and had the nerve to leave less than a year in because he didn't feel the complete support of the board. Because when he asked for a contract extension, they only offered him 1 year instead of 2. Now, he's taken over a smaller side, União de Leira, determined to show the giant Benfica what they are missing out on. And he does just that, taking the plucky side up the table. In his partial season, he has the side fighting near the top of the table. In 4th place, just a point behind Benfica, and 6th off the top of the table. Porto decide to make Benfica's loss their gain. After all, Mourinho is one of the hottest prospects around.
I'm not feeling the pressure, no. You cannot put pressure on me. No chance.
The year is 2021. Mourinho's stock is at the lowest it's ever been, and there's extremely limited interest in his services from the very elite teams, save the occasional rumour about returns to his former clubs. But in the depths of Rome, there is a club that threatens to be the perfect match. Much like Mourinho, Roma is an undeniable giant, but nowhere near their prime at the moment, and the pair could be perfectly aligned to take on the footballing world. It's the underdog mentality that Mourinho has previously thrived with, and the fans take to him instantly, flooding the streets of Rome and envisioning their future success. He is quick to rally the crowd.
Io rispondo già no, perché non siamo qui in vacanze.
He knows the significance of this chapter in his story. A poor Roma stint and his chances of managing an elite team in a top 5 league disappear. He takes the offensive, reminding everyone why the success of his past few years are viewed so dimly.
I am the victim of my own success. I am a victim of the way that people perceive me.
Mourinho is no longer at his peak, but he is still Mourinho. His name alone draws stars to Roma, new charges for his new mission, and that mission begins just as he would have wanted, with 6 wins in his first 7. But his first season is peppered with highs and lows, such as the 6-1 defeat to Bodo Glimt in the Europa League. After the match, Mourinho declares that Roma only have 12 to 13 players. If he could play with the same 11 in every match, he would, and it alienates all of the players on the pitch. It's a far cry from the young Mourinho, who felt no pressure. With his career on the line, signs of Mourinho fraying are there from the start, and the second leg brings even stronger emotions against the referee.
Look, the referee has to explain, but they don't speak.
So you meant the referee took it away today?
Of course.
But these strong emotions are part of the reason Roma fans fall in love with Mourinho. The stands are full, week after week, and in return Mourinho gives them what he always does. The first European trophy for an Italian side in over a decade is heading to Rome, and Roma fans worship Mourinho. Not long after, he drags them to the Europa League final, where they fall at the final hurdle. But the final toxic weeks show Mourinho at his most extreme. Striking out at referees becomes more and more commonplace, and in his time at Roma, he misses out on more than 15 games due to suspension.
Mourinho's come onto the pitch to complain. He's been sent off as well.
His time at Roma is when he turns on his own players more than ever, almost relishing every opportunity he gets to criticize them. Rick Karsdorp gets the worst of it, with Mourinho accusing the player of betraying his teammates by playing so poorly. His repeated, scathing attacks on Karsdorp border on abuse at times. When Mourinho's time comes to an end, it is a surprise, but financial issues are the biggest contributor, though some sections of Roma had begun to turn on the Portuguese. It's a tearful exit, one fueled by love for Roma, but also fueled by the realization that his career might never be the same again. The year is 2024. Jose Mourinho is Fenerbahce manager.